Hello, everyone, and welcome to the final episode of Interviews with Experts. I'm Sarah, your co-host, joined as always by the insightful and ever-curious Mark.
Hey there, everyone. It's hard to believe, Sarah, that we've reached the last episode of this incredible journey. I feel a mix of emotions, grateful, reflective, and honestly a little sad that it's coming to an end.
I couldn't agree more, Mark. Over the past 9 episodes, we've explored so many fascinating topics, met incredible experts, and, most importantly, learned alongside our listeners. Today, we want to take some time to reflect on the journey, revisit the powerful lessons shared by our guests, and leave our audience with something meaningful as we wrap up this series.
And of course, we'll be answering your questions, sharing some final tips, and discussing ways you can continue your personal and professional growth even after this series ends. So let's dive in, shall we?
Segment 1. Revisiting our favorite episodes.
Mark, do you remember how nervous we were when we started this podcast?
Oh, I do, Sarah. I still laugh about the first time we hit record. I was so focused on saying the right thing that I forgot to introduce myself properly.
But you recovered beautifully. And our very first guest, Dr. Lisa Grant, the career strategist, made everything feel so easy. She gave us such practical advice about setting clear goals and building a roadmap for success.
I still remember her saying, clarity is not just about knowing where you want to go, it's about knowing why it matters to you. That really resonated with me.
For me, it was her advice about breaking big goals into smaller, manageable steps. It's something I've applied in my personal and professional life, and it's helped me stay on track without feeling overwhelmed.
Another standout episode for me was episode 3 with Drive Michael Evans. His framework for effective communication, being clear, concise, and compassionate, was eye-opening.
Yes, and his emphasis on active listening was a game changer for me. It's amazing how much you can learn about someone simply by listening without interrupting or planning your response.
Then there was episode 5 with Drive Emily Carter on time management. Her concept of time blocking changed the way I approach my daily schedule.
And Herb Urgent versus Important Matrix was such a helpful tool for prioritizing tasks. I've started using it regularly, and it's reduced my stress levels significantly.
We also can't forget episode 8 with Drive Anita Patel, where we delved into mental wellness. Her advice on mindfulness and self-compassion was so profound.
Absolutely. Her 5-minute reset technique is something I've incorporated into my daily routine. It's amazing how a short pause can bring so much clarity and calmness.
Segment 2. Lessons from our guests.
Now, Sarah, let's break down some of the most impactful lessons we've learned from our guests. Which one stands out the most for you?
That's a tough question, Mark. But if I had to choose, I'd say the insights from episode 7 with entrepreneur Kevin Hartley. He talked about resilience and how to embrace failure as a learning opportunity.
Oh, yes. His quote, "Success is built on a foundation of failures," really stuck with me. It's such a powerful reminder to keep pushing forward, even when things don't go as planned.
Another memorable episode was episode 4 with Drive Elena Rodriguez, who spoke about building meaningful relationships. Her advice on nurturing connections by showing genuine appreciation was so inspiring.
And she also emphasized the importance of vulnerability in building trust. That was such a powerful takeaway.
Then there was episode 9 with Maria Lopez, where we discussed personal boundaries. Her perspective on saying no without guilt was so refreshing.
Absolutely. She said something that really stuck with me. Saying no to others sometimes means saying yes to yourself. That shifted my mindset completely.
Segment 3. Listener Q&A.
Now it's time to turn the spotlight on our amazing listeners. We've received so many thoughtful questions, and we're thrilled to answer a few of them in this final episode.
Here's our first question from David. How do you stay motivated when pursuing long-term goals?
Great question, David. One thing I've learned from our experts is to focus on your why. Understanding why your goal matters to you can keep you going, even when the path gets tough.
I'd add to that, David, by celebrating small wins along the way. Each step forward is progress, and acknowledging that can boost your motivation.
Our next question is from Priya. What's the most surprising thing you've learned from hosting this podcast?
For me, it's how interconnected everything is. Communication, time management, mental wellness, they all influence one another. It's been fascinating to see how improving one area of life can positively impact others.
I agree, Mark. For me, the most surprising thing was how much wisdom our guests had to share in such simple terms. It reminded me that great advice doesn't have to be complicated to be effective.
Our final question comes from Ahmed. How can we continue learning after this podcast ends?
Ahmed, learning never stops. Seek out books, podcasts, and workshops on topics you're passionate about. And don't forget the power of connecting with people who inspire you.
And always stay curious. Ask questions, try new things, and be open to new experiences. Growth happens when we step outside our comfort zones.
Segment 4. Final reflections.
Mark, as we close this final episode, what's the biggest lesson you're taking away from interviews with experts?
For me, it's the importance of being intentional about growth. Whether it's learning a new skill, improving a relationship, or managing your time, it all starts with a decision to grow. What about you, Sarah?
I'd say it's realizing the value of sharing knowledge. This podcast has shown me how powerful it is to create spaces where people can learn together.
And to our listeners, thank you for being such an incredible part of this journey. Your support, questions, and enthusiasm have made this series truly special.
We may be signing off, but remember, this is just the beginning of your journey. Keep learning, keep growing, and keep striving to be the best version of yourself.
And who knows? Maybe we'll meet again in another podcast series. Until then, take care, and thank you for being part of Interviews with Experts. Goodbye, everyone.